Discover 8 supernatural signs manifested after this equinox. Prophesied truths before the rapture. In the quaint village of Stonemere, where ivy clung to stone chapels and the hills whispered timeless secrets, a profound stirring hung in the air. Ruth, a devoted mother, felt it deep within her soul as the equinox approached. It was an unsettling tension, a divine anticipation that simmered beneath the surface of ordinary life. One serene evening, gathered with her children for their family prayer, the atmosphere crackled with an undeniable energy. Suddenly, she was overcome by a powerful presence, urging her to seek the counsel of Elder James, their beloved pastor. Ruth's heart raced as she approached Pastor James. Known for his prophetic insights, he listened intently as she poured out her concerns. "I feel something divine is coming," she confessed, searching his eyes for reassurance. He leaned in, saying, "I had a vision, dear Ruth. A tide of supernatural signs is destined to awaken the faith of our village." At that moment, hope ignited in her chest, but doubts loomed as Matthew, her husband, questioned the legitimacy of such events, dismissing them as mere fantasies. The community simmered with uncertainty, their hearts divided as whispers of doubt painted shadows over the faithful. As days passed, strange wonders began to unfold. First, there was Mrs. Elwood, the elderly neighbor whose frailty had confined her to her chair. One morning, Ruth was startled to see her kneeling in the garden, hands raised to the brilliant sun, strands of silver hair glistening like a halo. She was healed. "I feel rejuvenated," Mrs. Elwood proclaimed, her vibrant voice echoing through the village. Was this a promise fulfilled? Then came the miraculous healing of young Adam, who had been unable to speak since birth. One evening, as Ruth passed by his house, she heard the unmistakable sound of his laughter floating through the open window. "Mama," he called out, his voice pure and sweet. Unexplainable and astounding, these events rippled through Stonemere, igniting hope in even the most skeptical souls. Yet as the equinox neared, Ruth grappled with an uphill battle, her faith tethered by fears. Tales of divine healing soared, but skepticism abounded. Sunday services transformed into fervent gatherings filled with fervor, the congregation brimming with hope while others murmured doubts. Ruth felt like a rock in a turbulent sea, steadfast yet shaken. Each night, as she knelt in prayer, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on her heart, yet she persevered, pleading for strength and guidance in fervent whispers. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when the village's heart began to beat together in anticipation, tragedy struck. Ruth's sister fell gravely ill, her condition worsening with each passing hour. The community surrounded her in empathy, their hearts heavy. But would it be enough? Would her prayers carry the weight of this anguish? The fear threatened to engulf Ruth as hope flickered dimly like a candle flame in the wind. As they prepared to gather for a night of prayer, an electric charge filled the air. In the chapel, lit only by flickering candles, a stillness swept over them, the beating of their hearts synchronizing into an urgent prayer. Suddenly, a radiant light split the darkness, filling the room with warmth. They stood breathless, awash in an electric wave of faith. Questions hung in the air as the divine presence surrounded them, igniting a yearning for miracles beyond their wildest imagination. Would this be the moment that transformed their lives, binding their community together in awe? The answer lingered, cloaked in mystery, a promise of divine awakening poised to unveil itself in the coming days. As the candle flames danced unexpectedly, illuminating the faces of the villagers, a hush enveloped the chapel. Heartbeats echoed in the silence, a symphony of collective hope hanging in the air like a sacred mist. Ruth's eyes glimmered with unshed tears, blinded momentarily by the divine light. What did this brilliance signify? Was it a sign, an invitation to faith, or perhaps a call to act? Pastor James, standing resolutely at the front, raised his hands high, his voice trembling with the weight of the moment. Beloved friends, let us pray together. Let us lift our voices in unity. His words flowed like a river, powerful and unyielding, carrying the faith of the entire community upward into the embrace of the divine. With each uttered prayer, Ruth could feel the heaviness in her heart start to lift, as if the light somehow pierced the veil of doubt that long clung to her. She clasped her hands tightly, fervently repeating the words of the pastor. Lord, we seek your presence among us. Heal our brokenness, restore our faith. A sudden warmth swept through the congregation, charging the air with an electric fervor. Whispers cascaded through the room, splashes of awe and reverence. Can you feel that? Ruth's neighbor, Sarah, murmured hurriedly, her eyes wide with wonder. Yes, came a chorus of replies, voices rising in an exhilarating crescendo, emboldened by a mix of fear and belief. Ruth felt it too, the tangible sensation of something divine lingering just beyond reach. The history of her village, woven thick with hope and hardship, seemed to converge at that moment. Would the prayers they laid forth truly shift the heavens? As darkness enveloped the town outside, casting a deeper shadow within, the chapel became an oasis of light, a divine refuge. Ruth looked around, her heart swelling as faces lit by candlelight shone with purpose, their expressions reflections of certainty, anticipation, and urgent desire for healing. Her sister lay in pain, yet the Lord had gathered them here, and for that, she clung desperately to the promise of miracles. Then, just as Ruth thought the room could hold no more hope, a low hum began to fill the air, merging seamlessly with their prayers. It was as if the very stones of the chapel responded to their collective cry. The luminous light intensified, spilling forth like a holy torrent. The villagers gasped, a cascade of awe washing over them as one. And as the equinox brings balance, Pastor James proclaimed, so too will this divine moment balance our lives. Ruth could hardly contain herself. Joy erupted in her chest, amplifying the hope she had nurtured through sleepless nights. If this was a culmination of faith, could it indeed change her sister's trajectory? An image flashed in her mind, her sister healed, laughter spilling like sunlight on a crisp morning. Was this the path God wanted them to journey down? Suddenly, the miraculous movement of the light coalesced, forming a figure at the altar. With bated breath, Ruth's heartbeat synchronized with the rest, a divine heartbeat that throbbed in unity, calling each one to deeper faith. What was unfolding here in their modest chapel felt as real and potent as the dawn itself. In that charged moment, a soothing voice filled the air, as if an angel or a divine being had come to speak. The time has come to release faith like never before. Are you ready? A ripple of gasps echoed like waves, reverberating off the stone walls, leaving Ruth bound in wonder. What could lie ahead? Could they indeed bear witness to the miraculous? Would faith resonate decades into the future, or would doubts again scatter their hearts? With hearts laid bare and a divine invitation at hand, the answer hung suspended like the last rays of sunlight before nightfall. What awaited them only tomorrow's dawn could unveil. Would they dare to follow? Ruth's heart raced as the radiant figure at the altar shimmered with grace. Time seemed to pause, stretching with the weight of expectation. She could see others around her, transfixed by the presence, their faces painted with awe and reverence. The voice, soothing yet commanding, wrapped around the congregation like a warm embrace. The air crackled with sacred energy, lifting spirits, awakening even the faintest flicker of hope that had been buried deep within. You have cried out, you have sought it continued. Now is the moment of divine unveiling. Hold fast to one another, for your collective faith is a key. Just then, Pastor James, emboldened by the light, stepped forward. Friends, this is a divine junction, an opportunity to step into the unknown. Let us extend our hands, not just in prayer, but in unity as one body. As Ruth reached out, she grasped Sarah's hand firmly. Together, they squeezed their way through the crowd, forming a glowing chain of faith. The energy surged, pulsing through their intertwined hands, as if their unity ignited the very fabric of creation. With trembling voices, they echoed back, "We are ready, Lord." Suddenly, they were enveloped fully in light. An extraordinary sight unfurled before them, a tapestry of visions dancing on the walls, depicting healings, peace treaties, and bonds forged. Each frame whispered stories of faith's triumph over despair. Ruth's breath caught in her throat. Could this be a glimpse of the miracles their prayers were unlocking? Tears of gratitude streamed down her cheeks, sparkling in the holy glow. It was as if the tapestry was not merely a display, but a manifestation of promises yet to be fulfilled. She caught glimpses of her sister, not in pain, but vibrant with life, laughter spilling joyously. Hope surged like a flood through Ruth's veins. "Look," Sarah exclaimed, eyes wide with wonder. "It's our village, can you see? We're all linked together." As they watched, images morphed and shifted, a divine movie revealing relationships strengthened, lives restored, and the entire community thriving beneath God's embrace. The voices of the forgotten sang through the threads of the vision, weaving in the melody of unity and faith. But as much as that hope lit their hearts, shadows began to creep into Ruth's mind. Was this merely a fleeting moment of ecstasy? Would they return to their struggles post-glimpse? And doubt quietly whispered, what if they stepped forward only to find emptiness? Pastor James, perceiving their uncertainty, raised his voice, cutting through the murmur. "Faith is a journey, my friends. We must go forth, not knowing the end, but trusting the beginning. This is the birth of a new hope." As if in agreement, the light pulsed stronger, and Ruth felt a profound call within her spirit. Could she accept this divine invitation? What if we took a step back? Came the thought, tempting yet hollow. The village needed to be ready not just for what God could deliver, but for the trials of faith they would face upon returning to a world filled with doubt. Yet beneath the weight of that fear lay the promise of transformation. With a rush of courage, Ruth turned to her neighbors and clearly spoke, "We must stand firm together. No matter what trials come, let us do this. We are ready for the miraculous." The congregation echoed her resolve, voices melding into a mighty sound of affirmation that resonated across the walls. Ruth's spirit soared as she positioned herself among them, firm in faith. As the last echoes of their voices faded, the divine light began to dim gently, retreating into the heart of the chapel. There was still a sense of mystery lingering in the air, a promise yet to be wholly unlocked. With anticipation bubbling in her chest, Ruth took a deep breath. What would tomorrow hold? Would faith's pursuit lead them into uncharted waters? Together, we'll find out, she whispered, a newfound spark igniting within. What awaited them on the other side of faith's risk? Would their united front face the storms to come, or would the heavens draw them even deeper into a miraculous journey? The dawn would soon unveil everything. Would they be prepared for what awaited? As the first light of dawn crept through the stained glass windows, Ruth felt a stirring in her heart. The air was charged with expectancy, the remnants of last night's gathering still hanging in sacred stillness. Each flicker of sunlight seemed to pulse with promise, whispering of new beginnings and undiscovered depths. Ruth rose from her place, the morning light illuminating her path. She remembered the light, the warmth, the undeniable call to courage that had gripped the congregation. Today felt different, as if the world was holding its breath in anticipation of something remarkable. She could still hear echoes of their unified voices, the strong wave of faith cascading through the chapel, binding them all together. As she stepped outside, the village lay quiet, wrapped in a gentle embrace of dawn-esque light. It felt like a canvas waiting for strokes of divine artwork. Each house and every street corner seemed to hum with potential. "God, lead us today," she whispered, her heart ready to take on whatever lay ahead. Would they be able to embody the vision they had witnessed? Could their faith guide them through the challenges that would surely test them? In the distance, she spotted Sarah making her way towards the village square. With a brisk jog, Ruth caught up to her friend. "Did you feel it too?" "There's something in the air." Sarah's face lit up. "Absolutely. I've been thinking, what if today is a chance to share what we experienced? We should gather everyone and share the message of hope." Imagine the unity. Ruth's heart raced at the thought. Could their simple act of sharing stir hope in others? Would it spark a revival in their community? But what if they don't believe? Or what if they think we're foolish? Ruth's voice faltered, insecurity creeping in once more. Sarah squeezed her hand confidently. "What if we spoke from our hearts? They may not understand everything, but they might just see the light in us, the same light we felt last night. That could be enough." Ruth considered this, her spirit beginning to swell with a quiet determination. "Let us do it then. There's no harm in sharing the truth of our experience." As they meandered through the village, they began calling to their neighbors, inviting them to gather in the square later that day. Eyes sparkled in response, a glimmer of interest among the doubts. Conversations blossomed as whispers of hope spread, igniting curiosity and a desire to witness something greater. The sun climbed higher, showering the village in golden warmth, as villagers trickled in, drawn to the center square with a mix of enthusiasm and skepticism. Ruth and Sarah stood before them, hearts pounding, yet firm in their resolve. "Everyone," Ruth began, her voice steady, "we've seen something beautiful, something powerful. Last night, we were part of a divine vision, a calling to embrace unity and hope. We felt the promise of healing and restoration for us all." As murmurs rippled through the crowd, Ruth pressed on, drawing strength from the encouragement of the familiar faces before her. "We know our struggles. We know the pain and weariness that cloaks our days. But together, we can rise above." In that moment, a profound stillness enveloped the square. Ruth held her breath, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, like a deep breath before the plunge. Tears began to glisten in some eyes, faces turning toward one another, seeking understanding. She continued, "In unity, we can invite miracles to unfold. Let us create a ripple of faith that can touch every corner of our lives." The crowd erupted into quiet applause, a collective heartbeat of renewed hope thrumming in the air around them. Ruth felt strength surging within her, a connection manifesting before her eyes. They were ready perhaps not for all the answers, but for the journey ahead. Yet, amidst the newfound courage and excitement, a question lingered in the depth of her being. Would their faith be enough to sustain them through the trials that lay ahead? As laughter and chatter filled the square, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far greater than they could yet understand. What awaited them on this path, forged by faith? Would they rise together to meet the divine challenges? Or would doubt creep back in shadows, testing their resolve? Ruth held tightly to the flicker of hope within. Tomorrow had answers yet to be revealed. As Ruth stood in the center of the square, eyes glimmering with hope, she felt a gentle warmth enveloping her. It was as if the very Spirit was embracing them all in that moment. The crowd leaned in, each person tuned in to the shared heartbeat of faith that echoed through them. They may have arrived with doubt, but now their hearts flickered with anticipation like candles on a windy night, each flame dancing toward the truth Ruth had just spoken. "Let us pray," she urged, her heart racing with the sacred energy that surrounded them. She bowed her head, and the village followed suit. "Heavenly Father, we come before you with humble hearts. Guide us, give us strength, and let your light shine through us." As they prayed, Ruth felt an unusual stillness fill the air, resonating with a power that eclipsed her worries. It was both daunting and exhilarating to reach out to something greater, hanging on the edge of the unknown. A collective breath seemed to rise and fall together, a heartbeat of prayer spilling into the heavens. When they finished, an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins stepped forward, his presence carrying the weight of life's wisdom. "I felt something last night, too, but I thought perhaps it was just my imagination," he admitted, voice trembling slightly. "But now, with you all gathered here, I realize it was something divine." A murmur spread through the crowd like the rippling of water. "What we felt was real," Sarah chimed in, her voice bright and confident. "And together, we can ignite a flame that can't be extinguished." The atmosphere thickened with conviction. Hope flourished, replacing the doubt that had tangled in the hearts of the villagers. One by one, others began to share their experiences of faith, stories of miracles, answered prayers, and dreams that felt touched by God's hands. "I saw a light at the edge of the woods last night," young Eileen claimed, her voice quaking with excitement. "It flickered like a star, and I knew it meant something." A chorus of amens echoed back. Ruth felt a wave of encouragement wash over her. This was what she had hoped for, a shared openness, weaving their individual threads into a strong tapestry of belief that could hold them together against the world's trials. The sun continued to rise, painting everything it touched with lustrous hues of gold and red. As conversations buzzed, Ruth turned her gaze towards the sky, fleeting clouds passing by like thoughts of worry. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of fresh earth and morning blossoms. The morning air crackled with energy, and Ruth's thoughts turned inward. Just then, she noticed a figure standing at the far end of the square. It was the village skeptic Matthew. His arms crossed, he observed the gathering with mistrust. Wouldn't this be a chance to bridge the gap between faith and doubt? Steeling herself, she stepped toward him. "Matthew," she called gently, and he turned, his face a mix of intrigue and skepticism. Ruth took another step closer. "We're not here to condemn anyone's doubts. We're simply sharing what's in our hearts. Would you consider joining us?" He hesitated, searching her face for signs of insincerity, but instead found a grounded spirit radiating love. Well, I want to believe. It's just hard," he finally admitted. "That's okay," she replied earnestly. "In sharing our stories, we invite each other into the mystery of faith. Let us take this journey together." As Ruth returned to the heart of the crowd, she felt the enormity of their mission sink into her chest. Their newfound unity shimmered brighter. But even amidst their triumphs, a sense of trepidation nagged at her. What burdens lay ahead? What storms might break against their fragile hope? Ruth's mind raced with thoughts of uncertainty, yet she clung to the knowledge that faith was never blind. It always walked hand in hand with courage, lighting the path through the darkness. The question remained, how deep would their faith need to grow, and what choices lay ahead that would split them into moments of light and shadow? Little did she know, the journey to discover the true extent of their faith was just beginning. As the sun climbed higher, golden rays washed over the square, illuminating hopeful faces and casting shadows that flickered like the doubts they had laid bare. Ruth could feel the warmth sinking into her skin, mingling with her fervent prayers. Inspired by the sincere outpouring of faith around her, she knew that something significant was blossoming. Yet a quiet whisper lingered in her heart. Was it enough? "Friends," Ruth called out, noticing the energy in the square building. "Could we take a moment to listen for what God might be saying to us right now? Let us open our hearts and minds to his whispers." With a profound stillness settling over the crowd, they closed their eyes once more. The air shimmered, as if the very atmosphere was vibrating with divine anticipation. Ruth inhaled deeply, sensing the collective yearning for guidance. As they waited, the sound of soft wind rustled the leaves overhead, creating a melody that danced through the air. Every flutter felt like a divine promise. She recalled the stories Mr. Jenkins shared, tales of miracles blossoming amid despair. The villagers had faced trials that could easily drown the heart in sorrow, but here they were, standing strong. A bolt of inspiration struck her. What if we shared our hopes aloud? What are the dreams he has planted in our hearts? One by one, voices rose, delicate yet strong. I dream of healing, came a voice from the back, and soon another added, I hope our children know love. As these dreams were woven into the fabric of their gathering, a momentum began building. The crowd grew bolder. Eileen stood again, her voice vibrant. What if we stepped forward, each of us? If we joined together, might we see those dreams come to life? A fire ignited, fueling raw, powerful energy. Ruth felt her own heart expand with every shared dream, every hope announced. Each person's faith added to the collective, constructing something bigger than themselves. However, amid the rising fervor, Ruth recalled Matthew's uncertainty. Would he join? Gathering her courage, she turned to him once more. Matthew, you've seen many storms in your life, but what if you allowed yourself to envision a brighter tomorrow? We'd love to hear your hopes, too. His brow furrowed, conflict playing on his face as the weight of their gaze fell upon him. Ruth noticed a flicker of vulnerability. I have dreams, he finally said, uncertainty threaded through his voice. But I carry so many fears. Will they only lead to disappointment? A collective sigh swept through the crowd. Ruth could feel their hearts sink with Matthew's doubt, a testament to their shared humanity. Faith is like a seed, she offered gently. It must find the right soil to flourish. Sometimes, we need to plant the seeds together, trusting that they will grow even if we cannot yet see what will rise. Matthew hesitated but nodded, taking a small step closer, eyes softening. Ruth's heart soared. Perhaps this was a step forward for him, a flicker of possibility nestled within uncertainty. Continuing to share hope-filled whispers, the villagers were woven together like threads in a vibrant tapestry. Every story melded into the next, creating a chorus of faith echoing back to God. Ruth felt the divine warmth once more, enveloping them, assuring them they were not alone, but walking toward something beautiful. The sun dipped low, casting an ethereal glow across the square, illuminating their faces in golden light. Just when Ruth thought they were reaching a crescendo of shared faith, a sudden rustle in the nearby trees captured everyone's attention. The whisper of a breeze grew tense as stillness hung in the air, leaving an echo of anticipation. Then it happened. A bright beam of light shot down from the sky, illuminating the ground before them. Gasps filled the air, a mix of awe and disbelief, as people instinctively stepped back. Was this a sign? What were they about to witness? All eyes turned upward, and Ruth felt her heart race. The moment hung there, charged with promise and fear alike. But within that tension lay the question that would define them. What was God revealing in this sacred moment? With their faith poised to react, the villagers faced not only the light before them, but the dawning realization that their deepest hopes might soon intertwine with the divine, and they would never be the same. The air grew thicker as the shimmering beam cast a celestial glow, wrapping the villagers in a blanket of divine possibility. Ruth felt the very pulse of faith beating around her, each heart thudding in unison, both excited and fearful. What awaited them within the brilliance of the light? Instinctively, she reached for Matthew's hand. He squeezed back, sharing that brief moment of solidarity as their eyes widened at the scene before them. People murmured softly, their previous declarations of hope now mingling with an electric current of anticipation. The beam intensified, and with it came a sigh that swept through the square soft, like a gentle tide lapping against the shore. It felt like a whisper from heaven, calling them to step closer. As if drawn by an unseen force, the crowd edged forward, hearts quickening with each tentative step. Could it be? Someone uttered, voice trembling with a blend of awe and fear. Ruth turned to face the crowd, the flickering uncertainty mirrored in their eyes. Whatever happens, let us hold on to our faith. Let us not step back in fear, but forward in hope. Eileen nodded, lifting her chin. We can't ignore this light. Let's ask what it means for us. The villagers rallied together, hands clasped. Ruth joined in, buoyed by the growing faith that intertwined them all. They formed a circle, each person sending out their wishes and prayers into the golden air. Suddenly, the light pulsed and shifted. A figure began to materialize within it, slow and deliberate. Gasps echoed as they held their breath. Could this be an angel or perhaps a messenger from God? The figure, their countenance both serene and powerful, slowly stepped out of the light, casting an overwhelming sense of peace that mingled with the tension around them. Those gathered felt their hearts calm, as if Estar in the presence of the sacred silenced every worry that had clung to their souls. Do not be afraid, the figure spoke. It was a voice that resonated deep within, soothing like fresh rain on parched earth. It wrapped around them, igniting courage. I come bearing a message of hope for you, a promise from the Lord. Ruth felt her eyes shimmer with tears, overwhelmed by the beauty of the moment. There was something undeniable in the presence of this being, a stirring that spoke to something deep within her spirit. What is the promise? Someone called out, breaking the silence that followed. The figure raised a hand, and the light brightened. The desires you have spoken today, each one holds weight in the kingdom of heaven. Your faith is the seed. Your voices have watered it. This is the time of fulfillment. The hope you share today is about to take root and blossom. Cheers erupted, voices mingling in an exultant uproar, filling the air with jubilant cries. Tears of joy flowed freely as Ruth turned to Matthew, finding his expressions of disbelief morphing into wonder. She squeezed his hand tighter, their hearts bound in celebration of what was unfolding. And yet the figure continued, be aware, not all seeds bear fruit in the ways you desire. The Lord's ways are higher, perfecting what you cannot see. A shiver rippled through the crowd. Questions fluttered like startled birds. What did that mean? Ruth's heart pounded. The promise was real, but what might it demand of them? With tender grace, the figure took a step back, slowly retreating toward the light. The illumination pulsed rhythmically now, pulling everything toward itself, a gentle beckoning toward the unknown. Trust deeply, it called back to them, for you shall witness miracles born from your faith. However, be prepared to walk paths you have never known. Hope is a journey, not merely a destination. As the figure dissipated into the light, the villagers gasped. The air felt electric, a holy charge lingering in their midst. Ruth felt a thrill coursing through her veins, the gravity of what had just been shared pressing on her heart. They stood together in a moment heavy with promise and questions, unsure of the journey ahead. Would they indeed follow wherever this newfound faith might lead? The sunset painted the sky with vibrant colors. As the last glow of light faded, Ruth realized that their lives were now intertwined in a profound dance with the divine. But within her heart remained the greatest question: what trials of faith and hope would soon unfold? And were they ready to face them? Ruth's grasp on Matthew's hand tightened as the last echoes of the figure's voice faded. The villagers remained in a shared silence, caught between the weight of the promise and the uncertainty that lingered like a morning mist. Each soul stood poised on the edge of a new dawn, hearts aflame with faith and trepidation. Did you hear that? Eileen whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Paths we've never known. The words hung heavy in the air. Ruth felt them seep into her spirit, igniting a mix of hope and anxiety. What could this mean for their lives? And how would they be changed? As they slowly began to disperse, the villagers' excited chatter filled the square. They spoke of dreams ignited, of prayers heard. Ruth overheard snippets of conversations. Miracles are coming. I can feel it. Imagine what we might receive. But amid the jubilance, doubt crept in, invisible yet palpable, a reminder of their human frailty. Are we truly ready? Matthew murmured, his brow furrowing as he scanned the faces of those around them. What if it leads us somewhere we don't want to go? Ruth turned to him, the glimmer in her eyes steadying her heart. Sometimes You have to step out of your comfort zone to find what God has for you. ISNT, that what faith is for. He nodded slowly, taking in her words. A flame of determination flickered within him. As twilight cloaked the village, a warm breeze swirled through the square, carrying with it the residue of the light they had just witnessed. The scent of blooming flowers filled the air, a reminder that life was awakening all around them. Ruth closed her eyes momentarily, breathing deep as if inhaling the very essence of possibility. "Let us gather again tomorrow," Eileen suggested, her voice rising above the chatter. "We need to pray together to understand this promise." A wave of agreement washed over the crowd. Plans began to form, hearts united in shared purpose. Ruth felt a surge of gratefulness. Here, in this moment, they were not just individuals, but a community bonded by their faith and hopes. As people began to filter away, Ruth lingered, drawn back to where the figure had stood. The ground was warm beneath her feet, a silent testimony of the sacred space that had been formed. Suddenly, a cluster of fireflies danced in a whirl, sparkling like tiny stars fallen from heaven. They fluttered around Ruth, their flickering light drawing her attention. Maybe this is a sign, she thought, a soft smile spreading across her face. Matthew's voice broke through a reverie. What if we truly witnessed a glimpse of God tonight? What if those fireflies are a sign of the miracles that await us? They both gazed at the tiny lights, illuminating the darkness like smiles sent from above. Perhaps, in that simple beauty, lay the marks of faith unfolding a promise tangible yet veiled. "Let us walk home," Ruth suggested. "We can discuss everything over dinner." As they strolled through the village, the night felt alive with promise. The stars twinkled with the unfulfilled potential of faith, each one a reminder of God's unwavering love. But doubt still whispered in the corners of her mind what trials would come. What would this newfound hope cost them? Arriving at her doorstep, Ruth paused, a sense of longing gnawing at her heart. In the stillness of the night, she whispered a prayer. "Help us to be ready for what lies ahead, Lord." Matthew stood quietly beside her, the warmth of his presence grounding her. And as the first light of dawn began to mingle with the velvety skies, Ruth felt the heartbeat of something larger than herself. A divine orchestra was about to start, preparing them for a journey that would stretch their faith further than they ever imagined. Yet still, one thought lingered in her heart, unanswered. What challenges would test the strength of their faith before the glory of promise unfolded? The morning sun peeked through the curtains, casting streams of golden light into Ruth's cozy kitchen. She stirred the pot of oatmeal, the warm aroma filling the air. Matthew sat across the table, sipping his coffee and watching her with a contemplative look. The soft sounds of the village waking added a gentle hum, inviting them into another day bathed in the light of possibility. "Last night still feels surreal," Ruth said, stirring the oats with a smile. "Can you believe we might be on the brink of something extraordinary?" "I know," he replied, tapping his fingers on the table. "I've been thinking about the moment we all stood together. It was as if the whole universe was holding its breath." Pausing, Ruth turned her gaze to the window, where birds flitted from branch to branch. Nature, alive and vibrant, mirrored their growing sense of anticipation. "Sometimes, I wonder if we're ready for what God is about to unfold." Matthew leaned forward, his eyes serious. "Sometimes, I think faith isn't about being ready. It's about trusting Him when we feel unprepared. Aren't we called to step forward despite the fear?" Tears stung the corners of Ruth's eyes. Matthew's words resonated deeply. It was true. Faith often asked them to march forth, even when clarity slipped through their fingers like sand. She nodded vigorously, heart racing with excitement and a twinge of fear. "Let us prepare our hearts today," she suggested, her voice steadying. "We're meeting the others later to pray, and I feel we should go in with open minds and open hearts, open to whatever God may reveal." The morning unfolded, each minute layered with sacred intent. As they cleaned and prepared, an electric current of hope danced between them. Together, They gathered supplies for the meeting: a basket of bread, fresh fruit, and a jug of drink. When the time came, villagers streamed into Ruth's home, their faces a blend of curiosity and eagerness. Warm greetings were exchanged, filled with the tenderness of shared hopes. The small space buzzed with joy as everyone settled in, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Once gathered, Eileen led the group in prayer, her voice gentle yet fervent. "Lord, guide us as we seek your wisdom tonight. Help us prepare not only our hearts, but also our understanding of the divine path ahead." Inspired by the murmured amens and shared prayers, Ruth felt the presence of God enveloping them. The collective energy swayed like a candle's flame, bright, flickering, uncertain, yet undeniably alive. As they shared their thoughts and reflections, a palpable thread of faith wove among them. Stories of hardships, past prayers answered, and visions of the future began to echo in the room. Hope shone brightly in every word, binding their spirits together in a sacred tapestry. "We should write down those dreams and promises," suggested Matthew, his voice breaking through the flow of conversation. He held a pen against a blank parchment, inviting testimonies to take shape. One by one, villagers shared whispers of what they longed to see: healing, redemption, long-awaited reunions, and blessings manifesting in their lives. Ruth's heart soared as she listened, each name and dream stitched together their collective faith. As the evening wore on, Ruth noticed the fireflies glow outside the window, luminous against the gathering dusk. A soft smile crept across her face as she pondered their earlier thoughts. Were those flickering lights messengers of divine mystery, a reminder that miracles blossomed even in the darkest of hours? Their voices intertwined until a hush fell over them, a silence filled with awe. The weight of expectation hung like a fragrant balm. It was an invitation to step back, to breathe deeply, to simply be in the presence of God. In that moment, Ruth realized they weren't just writing down dreams. They were unveiling the very depths of their souls. A wave of peace swept over her. What challenge could withstand the unwavering power of community under God's guidance? Just then, a knock echoed through the room, breaking the silence. Who could it be at this hour? Murmurs floated through the air, a sense of intrigue spreading among them. As Ruth approached the door, a sudden thought crossed her mind. Could this be the moment of divine intervention they had all been waiting for? And as she opened it slowly, Ruth was left breathless. What could be waiting on the other side? As Ruth pulled the door open, an unexpected sight met her gaze. Standing at the threshold was Mrs. Elwood, the elderly neighbor who had brought renewed life to the village with her miraculous healing. Her silver hair glimmered like a halo against the dusk, and an earthy aroma emanated from her basket filled with herbs and flowers. Her smile radiated warmth, as if she carried sunlight within her very essence. "Forgive the intrusion," Mrs. Elwood said gently, her voice full of conviction. "I just had the most vivid vision, and I felt compelled to share it with you all. It happened last night, when we prayed the light, the warmth, it all became clear." Ruth stepped aside to let her in, her heart racing with excitement. The room hummed with curiosity as Mrs. Elwood settled into a chair, her eyes sparkling with divine purpose. Gathering their attention, she recounted her experience. "I saw our village transformed, a community thriving together under God's grace. I felt a deep connection. The light we witnessed is inviting us to heal each other, to rally around one another's dreams, understanding that faith mirrors the strength we share." Tears glistened in Ruth's eyes as hopeful whispers met her heart. Could it be that the healing Mrs. Elwood experienced wasn't just for her, but a call to the entire village? She felt invigorated, bursting with gratitude and anticipation. "Let us not just talk about healing," Ruth urged, her voice lifting with fervor. "Let us make it tangible. We've seen glimpses of miracles. Let us create a plan tonight, inviting those in need and bringing them to the light." Inspired murmurs echoed through the gathering. each soul sensing the electric shift in the air. They began discussing who needed prayer, who needed connection, and who carried burdens too heavy to bear alone. Faces lit up with ideas, fostering a profound unity that felt like a mighty river surging forth, a divine orchestration unfolding before their eyes. Ruth's heart swelled with unshakable joy, but underlying that joy was a whisper of wisdom. This was the moment they needed to act. "Let us form groups," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Let us assign tasks to everyone and reach out to those who are struggling. We are the messengers, the catalysts for change in our community." As ideas flew, Sarah suggested a day of prayer and healing. What if we invite everyone to the chapel? We can prepare a space for those seeking solace. We can hold their hands, lift them up, and seek God's miracles together. The room erupted with excitement as each person began to share their thoughts and hopes for the gathering. Ideas they would never have dared to pursue alone now flowed effortlessly from their mouths, igniting sparks of divine manifestation. The community began to form plans, tasks assigned, excitement building by the minute. As they wrapped up their meeting, a lightness infused the air, weaving through hearts with tangible warmth. Ruth couldn't help but feel that God was indeed moving among them, providing them with a clear path ahead. "Tomorrow, we will meet in the chapel," she proclaimed, confidence radiating from her as her voice rose above their chatter. "Let us stand firm in prayer and belief that we will witness divine miracles together." The group dispersed, laughter and anticipation filling the night air. They clasped hands, exchanging promises of unity, accountability, and hope. As Ruth stepped outside, she gazed up at the night sky, which sparkled brighter than it ever had before. "Tomorrow we begin," she murmured, her heart cemented in faith. "Tomorrow we will welcome what God has planned for us all." That night, Ruth lay in bed, touched by the day's profound revelations. She closed her eyes, surrendering every worry to God's capable hands. "Prepare us, Lord," she whispered. "Guide us every step of the way." The dawn would surely come, bearing the answers and miracles they dared to believe in. And as night turned to day, the sun rose gloriously over Stonemere, casting a golden hue over the impending day. Ruth awoke with renewed purpose. Today was the day of hope, the day they would step out in faith, not just for themselves, but for their entire village. She breathed in deeply, feeling that extraordinary charge pulsing through the air, letting it fill her spirit with courage and joy. The echoes of the villagers mixed with divine promise propelled them forward. Today they were going to share their faith. Today they were going to witness miracles. And as Ruth stepped outside, glancing at her neighbors, hearts poised and ready for the journey ahead, she knew one thing. Together, they were not just a community. They were a divine force forged in hope and unwavering belief. The true journey of miracles was about to unfold before them. Now it was time to take that leap. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive faith stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below your reactions and testimonies about this ending. Share your heart with us. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this manifestation of hope. Only true servants of God understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.